Louisville's Lamar Jackson had 5 total touchdowns in the Cardinals' 63-20 blowout of number 2 Florida State. Jackson now has 18 TDs in his first 3 games after only 23 touchdowns in all of 2015. Stephen A's Crimson Tide rallied from a 21-point deficit to knock off Ole Miss 48-43. The win ended a 2-game losing streak to the Rebels. So Alabama remained number 1 in the most recent AP Top 25, followed by Ohio State, who blew out Oklahoma, and Louisville makes the big jump from number 10 last week to 3. Stephen A., who should be number 1?
Oh, please. Roll Tide. Roll Tide. What's that talk about here?
Are you joking?
Listen. Lamar Jackson is big time. He's spectacular. I get all that. Bigger, stronger version of Michael Vick as far as I'm concerned. Running for 4 touchdowns, throwing another one. Certainly capable of galvanizing the team. But Max Kellerman keeps forgetting something. I was never high on Florida State. Did you remember that? I certainly did. When I saw Florida State come back against Ole Miss and all that, I wasn't fazed. Derwin James is a bad boy, no doubt. Him being hurt clearly hurt Florida State in this game against Louisville because this dude is special, possibly top 5 pick. Defensively, he's that big time. But I haven't been sold on Florida State. Never was. I picked Louisville to win this game. Lamar Jackson is my leading candidate for the Heisman. This brother's on another level, no doubt. But he ain't Roll Tide. They ain't Roll Tide. And if they go up against Roll Tide, I assure you that what Lamar Jackson did against Florida State ain't gonna happen against Roll Tide. I'm suspect about their defense just a touch. Jonathan Allen, that 75-yard interception return, obviously helped save the day. But Alabama was down 24-3, came storming back with 24 unanswered points, doing what they do, playing big boy football, and put Mississippi State on their heels. We get all that. I see where you're coming from. But in the end, what it comes down to for me is that Alabama, those meat and potato boys, how they play when it's time, how they'll punch you in the mouth and just steamroll over you. It's just too much for smaller teams to overcome. I am of the mindset that Alabama, Roll Tide, is the number 1 team in the country. And I want to hear about scores and how they were down and had to come back. Did they win or lose? They won the game. They did what they had to do. They're number 1 until you beat them. To be the man, Max, Spock, to be the man, you've got to beat the man.
Being
period.
Highly illogical, Stephen A. Look,
whatever.
I'm very proud of you that you have divined that Lamar Jackson is a Heisman frontrunner. You think?
We all do.
Responsible for 18 touchdowns through 3 games. You think he might be a Heisman runner? There's nobody else in the conversation right now. Sorry, everybody. There's also nobody else in the conversation. Not in the conversation for the number 1 team in the country. Let me tell you what college football does. It's one of the great things about the way college football is set up. Everyone's opinion goes into preseason rankings. Those are just opinions. And so right away we get upsets like, oh, my God, look at this. And it's so exciting early in the season because rankings are changing and upsets are happening. But those are upsets based on people's just guesses before the season starts. So Louisville, okay, FSU I thought was, FSU and a couple other teams. Clemson, obviously, I thought maybe their matchup in October, that would decide the national championship game. But it's really guessing until you see these guys play. Bobby Petrino, who stayed aggressive, by the way, throughout that game, was very impressive, has a team here that is just different from everyone else. Look, you bring up how you didn't like FSU. Look at the Ole Miss game. They had to come back against them. Jimbo Fisher's giving halftime speeches and all this kind of stuff and has to make adjustments. That's what Alabama did. FSU had to come back on Ole Miss. So did Alabama to finally get off the schneid against Ole Miss. They had to come back against them. Okay, so that's Alabama and FSU. It kind of gives you a basis for comparison. What did FSU do against Louisville? Louisville took them to the woodshed. Louisville turned them into Charlotte or Syracuse. Louisville 63-20, and it wasn't that close. It was really like 63-10. Those last 10 points are meaningless. They were ridiculous. Dalvin Cook couldn't get anything going. Yes, Derwin James' injury hurts, but not that much. 63-20. They're treating them like a nothing program. Louisville is by so far the #1 team in the country right now.
It's ridiculous.
That if you want to say to beat the team, you got to beat the team. You got to beat the team. The team to beat right now is Louisville.
Well, listen, what I'm saying to you is this. Louisville moved up 7 spots, man. What else the hell do you want? They don't deserve to be #1 yet. Let them beat Clemson when they play them in a couple of weeks. Hold on. Let them beat Clemson in a couple of weeks. Let them beat Houston near the tail end of the season. I think that game is like November 17th. Come talk to me at that particular moment in time. I told you I wasn't high on Florida State. I stand by that. I look at Alabama. Everybody's gunning for them. Everybody's bringing their A game. And by the way, I said Mississippi State. I meant Ole Miss. I apologize. They played Mississippi State later on. The point that I'm trying to make to you is this. When you look at Roll Tide and Nick Saban and who they are, the reigning, defending national champions, everybody's coming at them with their A game. There is something to be said about being the champion and having to fend off everybody's A game week after week after week.
So,
you have got to beat them.
If you're Alabama, but it's not if you're the Broncos.
Without beating
if you're
them,
the Broncos, give the #1 spot to the Steelers, but not
this
if you're
this is college football.
FSU. Do you understand?
Not pro football.
Do you understand?
It's
Right, because
football.
college football is heavily dependent on everyone's opinions, which are frequently proven to be wrong.
We got the college playoff system. Let Louisville will be there. Louisville keep playing, they'll be there.
How's the Louisville defense that just kept Dalvin Cook to 54 yards? How is their offense that just hung 63, the most points ever given up by Florida State?
They're worthy of being the #3 team. They're worthy of being the #3 team in the nation.
Because they started out underrated.
You gotta beat #1, which they will get their chance to do if they run the table. They will get their chance.
Yes.
We
Alabama
shall
will get their chance to beat #1, which at this moment looks like Louisville.
Who's #1 right now? Who's #1? So, Mr. Smart, Mr. Logical, who's #1 right now? Who's #1?
Yes.
Who
based
is #1?
On subjective criteria.
Who is #1?
Based on subjective criteria, it's Alabama.
Can I get an answer for my question? Can I get an answer for my question?
Subjectively.
Alabama.
Right.
#1.
But if you want to actually use the evidence, then it's Louisville. I mean, it's up to you. What do you want to use?
All right, guys. Lamar Jackson is the Heisman favorite, according to Westgate, Las Vegas. Today, it was a defensive battle between AFC North rivals, and as Pittsburgh and the Steelers held off the Bengals to improve to 2-0. Big Ben did his part on offense with 3 TD passes. Meanwhile, a week after A.J. Green owned Revis Island, hauling in 12 of 13 targets for 180 yards and a TD, the Steelers held Green to just 2 catches on 7 targets for 38 yards. Max, let's start with you here. Are the Steelers now the best team in the AFC?
Nope. They're the 3rd best team in the AFC. That's right, the 3rd best team in the AFC. Now, everyone watching the Steelers so far this year says, what are you, crazy? Quarterback, check. Coach, check. Wide receiver, check.
No, just get to your point.
Check. Defense nowadays, check. And I remember Mike Tomlin's first ever press conference. I was like, who's this guy? And he got up at the podium with a hat on and said, Steelers football. Run the ball, stop the run. And it seems like they're back to that. Running, they can, obviously, especially when Bell comes back, run the ball. And they're stopping the run now. So everyone's like, yay, Steelers. I get it. They are excellent. However, the reigning and defending Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos are 2-0. John Elway and Kubiak, I mean, that's quite a team. They did it without a real quarterback last year, the remains of Peyton Manning, and then Brock Osweiler, who wasn't good enough to even play in the playoffs. The remains of Peyton Manning, 9 touchdowns, 17 picks, were better than that, and yet they were able to win the Super Bowl behind that defense. Simeon, I don't think there's a drop-off, really, to tell you the truth, in quarterback play so far. And you look at what they've done so far. Cam Newton and the Panthers, they picked up right where they left off. Andrew Luck with the money on the line. Talib and obviously Von Miller with the money on the line, making plays as always. I think clearly the Broncos deserve the benefit of the doubt there. Also sitting at 2-0 with the win over the Panthers. And then look at the Patriots. They're 2-0 without Brady, without Gronk, without their starting tackles week 1 or Dion Lewis, and then in week 2 for half the game without Garoppolo, and one of those wins is on the road against Arizona, and they're getting Gronk back, and they're getting Brady back, and they may mess around and be, as many predicted, 3-1 when that happens. So I'm sorry, as much as I like the Steelers, as great as Tomlin is, Roethlisberger is, the whole crew is, I don't think you can put him above number 3 in the AFC right now.
Well, first of all, you're wrong, but what else is new? I understand. When you look at the Denver Broncos, their defense is elite. There's no doubt about that. But don't tell me some Trevor Siemian. I don't give a damn if he's got Emmanuel Sanders and Demaryius Thomas at his disposal with C.J. Anderson coming out of the backfield, that they're a better offense than the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's understand that the Steelers are undefeated as well as New England and Denver. You look at New England, you got to give them their props because obviously their offense is predicated on Brady with that 2 tight end set, okay? And you've got Martellus Bennett with Gronk. Ultimately, when Gronk comes back healthy, you got to look at it from that perspective. And I have to sit up there and give the New England Patriots the edge until further notice. I don't have to do that with Denver when you've got a rookie quarterback. And it brings me to the Steelers. This is a Steelers team that's getting Le'Veon Bell back in 2 weeks. This is a team that's expected to sit up there and to have Marcus Wheaton at their disposal, Ladarius Green at their disposal. Yesterday, James and Grimble were the tight ends that caught touchdown passes from Ben Roethlisberger, along with D'Angelo Williams. You look at D'Angelo Williams over the first couple of games, had about 32 carries, 26 carries in game 1 against the Redskins. What did he have yesterday? 32 carries. Entirely too much work. 4 additional receptions. Excuse me, it's entirely too much work. That's not going to be the case once Le'Veon Bell comes back. So you're talking about D'Angelo with Le'Veon. You're talking about Wheaton and Green with an Antonio Brown. You still got Eli Rogers. Now you've got James and Grimble, who shows that they can produce for you as well. Sammy Coates is the third dude on the come up out of Auburn from a couple of years ago. 2 receptions, that's all, but for 97 yards, okay, including a 53-yard catch. So when you look at it from that perspective, he had a 53-yard catch and a 44-yard catch. I'm thinking about the Sammy Coates along with the personnel that I have. Could you imagine how formidable the Steelers offense is going to be? And then defensively, albeit it was against the Redskins, you got the Bengals. Yesterday, you shut down Green. Those 31 completions that Andy Dalton had. I mean, what are we talking about here? Dips and dunks, that's all he was doing pretty much for the afternoon. So the Steelers were able to neutralize them somehow, some way. Their defense is playing better. Their secondary is playing better. They've got more speed, more youth, more athleticism. And if their defense can give you anything with that offense and the way that they can perform, please. Yesterday was an aberration because it was raining, it was slick out there, and guys were being safe. The game wasn't as ugly, so we're thankful for that. But at the same time, inclement weather conditions hindered the level of potency that we are normally accustomed to seeing. But I'm pleased with what I'm seeing with the Steelers thus far. I'm very pleased.
Real quick,
and
Stephen A., who's going to win the Super Bowl?
And the Steelers. It's
Stephen
going to
A.,
be
who's
New
going to win the
England
Super Bowl?
against... No,
Who's
it's not the Super Bowl.
I'm just curious, who's going to win the Super Bowl? Real
Steelers
quick.
against the Patriots in an AFC Championship
But you
game.
said the Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl this year, right?
I'm picking the Panthers.
Okay, good. The Broncos just beat them in the Super Bowl and then beat them week 1. I was just checking, but you think, okay, got it.
So what?
Got it.
So
the
what?
Broncos are pretty good.
So what? They're pretty good. I never said they
Broncos
weren't pretty
pretty
good.
good.
I said then I'm not putting them ahead of the Steelers. That was the question.
Because they beat
you
the
the one
Super
that
Bowl.
said third.
They beat the favorites to win the Super Bowl last year, and your favorites this year, they beat them already, and they're 2-0.
So?
Okay.
So what?
But the
You know who
Steelers
looks
are better
pretty
than
good,
that
gentlemen?
because you like the Steelers. Okay.
You know who
Okay,
looks
that's what
pretty
we do.
good? Let's leave it there.